Welcome to Pillow Tales tonight. The journey began in the quiet, sophisticated glow of a 1920s winter evening aboard the majestic Orient Express, a vessel of polished mahogany and velvet carrying secrets and souls across the sleeping continent. Hercule Poirot, the renowned Belgian detective, was not traveling for a case this time. He was traveling for peace, intent on nothing more taxing than perfecting the arrangement of his cufflinks and, crucially, securing the recipe for the perfect chocolate chaud from the train's remarkable chef. It was just after 10 o'clock. The train had reached a point deep in the mountains, somewhere near the Swiss border. An unexpected blizzard had forced the train to halt. They were quite alone, a string of warm, glowing carriages marooned in an ocean of white. Poirot sat in his compartment, compartment A, a marvel of organization. He looked out at the falling snow, each flake a tiny, crystalline perfection, adhering to the order that he cherished. He had just finished his second, and he hoped perfect cup of hot chocolate. It was rich, dark, not too sweet, and served in a precise white porcelain cup. The steam rose in slow, swirling spirals, carrying the faint, soothing aroma of cocoa and vanilla. The absolute quiet of the stopped train was unusual, almost unnerving. The gentle rhythm that lulled the traveller to sleep, the clack, clack, clack of the rails, was gone, replaced by the hushed shush of snow against the window glass. Within this cocoon of quiet, there were 5 other passengers of note in the first-class carriage. 5 souls, now isolated together in the vast European wilderness. In compartment B, directly across the narrow, carpeted passage from Poirot, was Lord Harrington. A man of sharp angles and even sharper manners, Lord Harrington was a notorious collector of antiquities, obsessed with miniature clocks. He had been visibly agitated since London, occasionally pacing the passage with a soft thump of his expensive leather boots, often stealing glances at compartment C. Compartment C, the fateful one, belonged to Madame Esmeralda Vance. She was a formidable woman, known as much for her exquisite taste in 17th-century automatons and clocks as for her ruthless acquisition tactics. She possessed the coveted Kronos' tear, a miniature timepiece rumoured to be worth a king's ransom. Just next door, in compartment D, resided Miss Clara Penhaligon. Miss Penhaligon was Madame Vance's personal secretary, a small, pale woman who seemed to exist in a permanent state of tremor. She was rarely seen without a sheaf of papers and a look of profound, exhausted relief that her ordeal was temporary. Further down the carriage, Mr. Silas Kincaid occupied compartment E. He was a loud, brash American financier, a man whose presence seemed to ripple the quiet air. Earlier that day, Madame Vance had loudly, and quite publicly, accused him of a massive financial impropriety in the dining car. Finally, in this compartment F, sat Lady Beatrice Shaw. She was a quiet, elderly woman who read perpetually and spoke only in soft, almost inaudible murmurs. Poirot noted the intense, almost protective way she guarded a small, silver-framed photograph tucked into her book. Her compartment was linked to compartment E by a small, sealed, but clearly visible connecting door. The conductor, a nervous Frenchman named Marcel, had passed Poirot's door just moments ago. All was quiet. Too quiet. Poirot took a sip of his hot chocolate, savouring the rich, dark flavour. He closed his eyes, contemplating the order of the train. He was wrong. Chapter 2. The Crime Discovered. The tranquillity of the snowy night was shattered not by a sound, but by a sudden, frantic thump against Poirot's door, followed by a series of hurried, distressed French exclamations. It was Marcel, the conductor, his face the colour of old parchment. "Monsieur Poirot, mon Dieu, monsieur, you must come. It is Madame Vance. There is something wrong, terribly wrong." Poirot, despite his profound irritation, immediately noted the precise pitch of terror in Marcel's voice. He placed his cup down with meticulous care and rose to his feet. "Calm yourself, Marcel. Let us proceed with the méthode," Poirot said, his voice quiet but firm. "Lead me to the scene of this disorder." They moved quickly down the plush, narrow passage. The destination was compartment C. Marcel gestured wildly at the door. "I knocked, monsieur. I brought her morning tea early. I knocked and knocked and knocked." There was no sound. "I tried the master key, but regardez, monsieur." Poirot leaned in. The door was locked. The key was visible in the lock on the inside, preventing the conductor's master key from engaging. "A locked room," Poirot murmured. Lord Harrington emerged from compartment B. Miss Penhaligon, from compartment D, huddled in the passage, whimpering softly. Dr. Finch, the handsome young physician, pushed past them. "Stand back, everyone," the doctor commanded. "We must gain entry." It took the collective weight of the conductor and Dr. Finch to force the old, heavy door open. The wood splintered with a sharp, sickening sound. The air that rushed out of compartment C was thick, cold, and heavy, with the sickly sweet aroma of bitter almonds, the unmistakable scent of cyanide. Madame Vance was slumped at her small table, her head resting on a stack of ledgers. She was quite dead. Poirot surveyed the scene instantly. The interior. On the table, next to the ledgers, was a single empty liqueur glass. Nearby, a small silver service held a few drops of dark liquid. The Kronos' tear masterpiece was perfectly centered on the shelf, untouched. The lock. The key was still jammed in the internal side of the lock. The window. The large observation window was sealed shut, the edges covered in a thick layer of frost. A long strip of official Swiss customs paper was pasted securely across the seam of the window frame and the glass. It was unbroken. Poirot stood in the doorway. "A moment of reflection, s'il vous plaît," he announced. "We have the impossible. A woman poisoned by cyanide in a room locked from the inside, with no apparent way for the poisoner to escape. This is a classic little challenge for the grey cells." He turned his attention to the table. Near the victim's hand, among the scattered papers, he spotted a tiny, clear glass vial. It was empty. "Dr. Finch?" Poirot asked. "Can you confirm the cause of death is what the scent suggests?" Dr. Finch, now examining the body, nodded gravely. "The coloration, the pupils, the odour. Yes, Monsieur Poirot. It is cyanide, fast-acting. She died almost instantly after ingestion." Poirot looked at the liqueur glass, then at the clock collection. He looked out the window at the silent, overwhelming snow. The murderer, if there was one, had to be one of the passengers. He straightened his waistcoat. This was far more interesting than perfecting his hot chocolate. Chapter 3. Investigation begins. Poirot began his investigation with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker. He moved the suspects to the relative safety of the train's small salon carriage and instructed Marcel to guard compartment C meticulously. "Now, we proceed with the small, neat steps of logic," Poirot began. "I require the facts, without the melodrama. I shall begin with the man who possesses the greatest interest in Madame Vance's possessions, Lord Harrington." Lord Harrington sat bolt upright. "Monstrous, simply monstrous, Poirot. Yes, I admit I wanted the Kronos's tear clock. But kill her? Absurd. I wish to possess the objects, not to destroy my chance of owning them entirely." Timeline check. Lord Harrington claimed to have been in his own compartment, compartment B, since 9:30 p.m. reading. He swore no one entered or left compartment C, directly across from him, between 9:30 and the conductor's arrival. Next, Poirot questioned Mr. Silas Kincaid, the American financier. "I was framed by that woman. I was in my cabin, E, all night. I have an alibi, a cast-iron alibi, I tell you." Timeline check. Kincaid claimed he was making a series of urgent telegrams via the train's wireless, dealing with the very accusation Madame Vance had made. The wireless operator confirmed Kincaid had been dictating codes and messages from his compartment door between 10:21 p.m. and 10:45 p.m., the exact window of time when the murder must have occurred. Poirot turned to Miss Clara Penhaligon, the secretary. She was not a kind woman, Monsieur Poirot," Miss Penhaligon whispered. "But I never wished her dead. I depended on her for my employment." Timeline check. Miss Penhaligon claimed she was preparing Madame Vance's medications and documents in compartment D. "I passed her a small glass of water and the ledgers through the connecting passage at 9:55 p.m., just before she locked up for the night. The passage door was then locked and sealed from her side." Poirot paused. The facts were solid. The impossibility remained. No one had entered or left. He instructed Marcel to bring the following items to the salon: the empty liqueur glass, the small, empty, clear glass vial found on the table, the silver service. He then asked Dr. Finch to describe Madame Vance's medical history. She was diabetic, Monsieur Poirot, quite severely, the doctor revealed. She had a supply of a new, highly concentrated German medication. She also had an extreme, near-paralyzing fear of doctors and needles, despite her condition. Poirot returned to the empty vial. It was the size of a thumb, completely unmarked. "Miss Penhaligon," Poirot asked softly, "you handled the medicines. What exactly was in this type of vial?" Clara Penhaligon blinked through her tears. "Madame Vance. She used many vials. One type for her diabetes treatment. The other was for cleaning her precious clocks. A highly volatile polish and preservative. She always made me remove the labels." Poirot leaned back, satisfied. The perfect locked room, the perfect suspects. But the disorder was not in the crime itself, but in the assumption of crime. Chapter 4: Clues and Red Herrings. Poirot allowed himself a necessary break, returning to the salon to begin his slow, deliberate process of illuminating the simple answer. He began with a small, empty envelope, found discarded beneath the table in compartment C. "And what was in this envelope, I wonder?" Poirot asked the room at large. Lord Harrington cleared his throat loudly. "It contained a secret, Monsieur Poirot. I believe it was a letter from a certain duke of an Eastern European principality, detailing the terms of sale for a historic clock. That letter is now gone." "A missing document?" This immediately pointed the finger back at Lord Harrington or Mr. Kincaid. Poirot then turned his attention to Lady Beatrice Shaw in compartment F. "Lady Shaw," Poirot addressed her. "Did you hear anything? A muffled cry, a struggle, a moment of sharp noise?" Lady Shaw lowered her novel. "No, monsieur. I was reading by the light of my small lamp. I heard Mr. Kincaid dictating his telegrams. But after that, nothing. Silence. I dozed off around 10 o'clock. Poirot pointed to the silver-framed photograph she held. "And the subject of the photograph, madame?" Lady Shaw's composure broke. "My son, David. He died 3 years ago. Madame Vance. She ruined him financially. He took his own life. I am travelling now to settle his affairs." Lady Shaw had a clear, terrible motive. Revenge. Poirot then fixed his gaze on conductor Marcel. "Marcel, you have the master keys. You could unlock the door of C from the outside, enter, administer the poison, and then comment. How did the key reappear on the inside of the lock with the door locked?" "I swear on my mother's grave, monsieur, I did not enter. The master key does not work when the internal key is in place," Marcel insisted. Finally, Dr. Finch intervened. I have examined the latch, Monsieur Poirot. There is no string, no wire, no elaborate mechanism. The door was simply locked, and the key was in the keyhole. It is mechanically impossible for anyone to have been inside, killed the woman, and then relocked the room and sealed the window. Poirot smiled, a private, knowing smile. That is precisely what makes the mystery so beautiful, Doctor. When the impossible is eliminated, what remains, however improbable, must be the truth. And the truth, I suspect, is hiding in plain sight. Chapter 5. Complications and Twists. Poirot now knew that the true complication was the impossible crime. He instructed Marcel to bring him all of Madame Vance's remaining medicinal supplies from compartment C, along with her complete clock-cleaning kit. The medicinal kit contained several boxes of pills and a small leather case containing a dozen clear glass ampoules, all filled with a milky white liquid, her highly concentrated German diabetes treatment. None of them had labels. The clock cleaning kit contained small brushes, cloths, and a miniature stoppered bottle of clock oil. And, lying among the cleaning cloths, were several more identical clear glass ampoules, these ones empty and faintly smelling of industrial polish. "Observe, mes amis," Poirot announced, holding them up to the gaslight. "The only discernible difference is that one contains life-saving medication, and the other, or at least the empty twin, contained a substance powerful enough to be deadly." He then focused on the manner of poisoning. Madame Vance was diabetic, Doctor. A woman who avoided sugar and alcohol meticulously. Why would she suddenly take a strong, sweet liqueur just before bed? Tell me, Miss Penhaligon, about the key to compartment C. Who had access? Only Madame. She kept it on a chain around her neck. She was obsessive about security. The final, essential twist now presented itself. Poirot had asked Marcel to retrieve the victim's reading glasses. They were found on the bedside table, folded next to a small, powerful torch, a flashlight. Madame Vance had poor taste in preparation, Poirot mused. Miss Penhaligon, did Madame Vance suffer from poor eyesight? Yes, monsieur, quite badly in low light. She needed them for reading ledgers or for administering her medication. The critical insight. The victim was diabetic, required precise, fast-acting medication from an unlabeled vial, and had severely failing eyesight in the dark. Poirot placed the reading glasses, the milky white ampoule, and the torch next to the small liqueur glass. Let us imagine the scene, Poirot dictated. It is 10 p.m. The train has stopped suddenly in the dark, snowy night. The lights flicker momentarily. Madame Vance, nervous and alone, feels a sudden, sharp drop in her blood sugar, a hypoglycemic attack. She needs her medication immediately. She fumbles for her supplies. She retrieves the small torch and her reading glasses. She opens her leather case. But she makes a mistake, a tiny, human, and tragic mistake. Instead of grabbing the milky white ampule of her life-saving diabetes drug, she grabs the equally milky white ampule that she used to clean her delicate clock parts. "The cleaner," Dr. Finch whispered. "It was a powerful arsenic-based solvent she used, highly toxic if ingested." "Precisely," Poirot confirmed. "She is panicking. She knows she needs the medicine instantly. She is wearing her glasses, but the light is poor, and the ampules are identical. She needs a fast vehicle to swallow the medication, a way to wash down the bitter taste. She reaches for the only fluid she has on the table, the liqueur she had poured earlier. She crushes the wrong ampule into the glass, drinks it down, and feels the terrible burning. She realizes her error, staggers to her door, locks it in a final panicked attempt to secure her room before she collapses, and then she is gone. The locked room was not a shield for a murderer's escape, but a shield for a victim's panic. The mystery had solved itself through the victim's own meticulous habit. Chapter 6. The revelation Poirot now stood before the assembled suspects. The revelation, he knew, was not sensational. It was human. "The case is closed," Poirot announced. "There is no murderer aboard the Orient Express. There is only a victim of her own rigorous order." He systematically dismantled the remaining red herrings. Lord Harrington. "Your passion for clocks, Lord Harrington, was entirely innocent. You did not kill her." Mr. Kincaid. "Your financial quarrel, Mr. Kincaid, was a distraction. You were giving an alibi to yourself in the wireless office." Miss Penhaligon. "Miss Penhaligon, your resentment was palpable, but your actions were those of a dutiful, frightened servant. You lacked the killer instinct." Lady Beatrice Shaw. "And, Madame, your grief and thirst for revenge were terrible. But I observe your hands. They are the gentle hands of a reader, not the strong hands required to force a door." Poirot then summarized the true mechanics of the tragedy, focusing on the 5 most critical and smallest pieces of evidence. The unlabeled vials, the identical packaging of the medication, and the poisonous clock-cleaning agent, the reading glasses and torch. The items suggested the action was taken in poor light and under great duress. The liqueur. The use of the unusual sweet vehicle confirmed a desperate, instantaneous need to mask the foul taste of the poison, confirming the action was ingested, not administered by another. The locked door. The key in the lock, an act of final panicked security. The missing Duke's letter. This was found by Poirot tucked into Madame Vance's own sock drawer. She did not sell it, nor did anyone steal it. She hid it, as all obsessives hide their true treasures. The entire drama was merely a theatrical frame for a simple, tragic accident. The great mystery was not who killed her, but what killed her, and the answer was a confusion of two small, unmarked bottles in the dark. "I believe," Poirot concluded, his voice soft, "that we can all now return to our compartments. The disorder is resolved." Chapter 7. Justice Served. The Epilogue. The conductor, Marcel, slowly, methodically, began the process of cleaning and restoring compartment C. As the sun began to rise over the snowy mountain peaks, the engine drivers signaled the train's readiness to move. In the salon carriage, a quiet sense of anticlimax had settled over the remaining passengers. Lord Harrington was making discreet inquiries about the legal fate of the Kronos's tear. Miss Penhaligon looked quietly, profoundly relieved. Lady Beatrice Shaw sat quietly, the urge for violent revenge now replaced by quiet acceptance. Poirot returned to his compartment, compartment A. He rang for Marcel. "A final chocolat chaud, Marcel. This time make it perfect. And this time, please, use the precise labelled cocoa from the box marked Premium Dutch Cocoa, not the unlabelled powder from the silver tin." Marcel gave a weak, grateful smile. "Labels, Monsieur Poirot. I shall never look at a label the same way again." Poirot sat, watching the train begin to move, the slow, gentle clack, clack, clack of the rails returning. "You see, my friend," Poirot murmured to himself, "the greatest tragedy is often not the villain's malice, but the victim's own human failing. Madame Vance sought order by removing the messy labels, and that very removal led to the greatest disorder of all." He savoured the hot chocolate. "There is a lesson here for all of us who seek order in a chaotic world," Poirot mused. "Sometimes the most important thing is not to be clever, not to be quick, but simply to be prepared and present, to trust the label, to light the torch, and to see clearly." And so, with the soft, steady rhythm of the wheels beneath his feet, Hercule Poirot closed his eyes, his mind settling into the perfect tranquillity of a solved, if melancholy, case. He knew the journey ahead would be restorative.